Hello physical science students, and welcome to this video about optical instruments. We are going to look at some different instruments and how lenses and mirrors are used in them to make objects easier to see. We're going to look at a variety of telescopes, refracting, reflecting, and space telescopes. We're going to also look at microscopes and cameras. You know from experience that it is very difficult to see very far away objects clearly. That's because only some of the light that's reflected from the surface of that very far away object actually enters your eye. A telescope will use either a lens or a concave mirror that is much larger than your eye to gather more of the light from the distant object. The first type of telescope we're going to look at is the refracting telescope, and a simple refracting telescope uses two convex lenses to gather and focus light from distant objects. So incoming light from the very distant object, which is nearly parallel to the optical axis of the lens, comes in through that first lens, and that first lens is called the objective lens. And the image is going to be a real image formed right here at the focal point within the body of the telescope. The second lens is called the eyepiece lens, and it magnifies this real image. When you look through the eyepiece lens here, you see an enlarged, inverted virtual image of that real image that was formed by the objective lens. The limiting factor with refracting telescopes is that this objective lens has to be very, very large, and the amount of magnification that can happen is all depending on how large this objective lens is. A reflecting telescope uses mirrors instead of lenses to capture the light, and so it can be much larger than a refracting telescope. The way a reflecting telescope works is that light from a distant object will enter one end of the telescope, and in this case will strike this concave mirror at the opposite end, and the light reflects off of that concave mirror and converges, but before it converges, it hits a plane mirror that is at an angle inside the telescope tube, and then it's reflected from that plane mirror toward the telescope's eyepiece, where it converges before it hits the eyepiece at the focal point and creates a real image of the distant object right here. And then just like in the refracting telescope, a convex lens in the eyepiece magnifies that real image for the viewer. Another kind of telescope are space telescopes, and these are used because Earth's atmosphere distorts the view of objects in space. So if we can use a telescope beyond our atmosphere, we can obtain much sharper and clearer pictures of what we're trying to view in space. And the Hubble Space Telescope is a type of reflecting telescope, and it uses two mirrors to collect and focus the light to form an image. Its primary mirror is 2.4 meters across. The Hubble Space Telescope is not the only space telescope. There are several others as well. Now let's take a look at how a simple microscope would work. A microscope uses two convex lenses that have relatively short focal lengths to magnify some small, close object. The object that is going to be viewed is placed on a transparent slide and illuminated from below. The light passes by or through the object on the slide and travels through the objective lens right here. The objective lens is a convex lens, and the image that is formed here, and it is a real enlarged image of the object because the distance between the object and this lens is between 1 and 2 focal lengths. So this real image here is then magnified again by the eyepiece. It's another lens, it's another convex lens, and what is created is a virtual enlarged image that is magnified. So how do cameras work? Well, you can see from these little pink arrows, light follows a path entering into the camera from an object. The light rays are almost parallel to each other, and when you take a picture with a camera, this is supposed to represent the shutter. That opens to allow light to enter the camera for a specific length of time. and the light reflected off the object then enters the camera through an opening called the aperture here, and the camera lens focuses, here's the lens from the camera, it focuses the image onto an image sensor. And if this is the image sensor back here, that ends up converting that light into electrical signals, and a computer processes those signals into an image that can be displayed on a screen or printed. Here's some advanced ideas. Describe what you would have to do to change a microscope into a refracting telescope. Also, binoculars, how do those work? What's the purpose of the prism in a binoculars? Other ideas, did you have questions, or are you interested in anything we've looked at in this video? Do a little research. I look forward to seeing what you come up with, and we'll see you in class.